Hello, welcome to the presentation video for the third and final finite element methods project. This time we have it as an individual app and it can be launched from the desktop, like so. Our application comes in three parts: the pre-process, the process, and the post-process. In the pre-process, you can choose the inclusion shape, the dimensions of the inclusion shape, and the element type. You can also choose to void it or have the inclusion. You can generate the mesh like so. You can enter the property you want like so. You can choose the deformation type. You can choose the magnitude of the deformation. And when you run, after a while, it will give you and plot the post processes you want. You can choose the color maps. You can choose to display the edges. You can choose to exaggerate. And you can do this for stress XX, stress XY, stress YX, stress YY, strain XX, strain XY, strain YX, strain YY, displacement X, and displacement Y. We added a few features to our application. One of them is the assistant you see here. When you change a property of either the pre-process or the post-process, you are warned. It detects the change and tells you to generate and run to apply it. So if we were to do the same thing with a square inclusion shape, it would tell us to run to apply it. Now we've also error-proofed our program. As it is known, the E value cannot be larger than half of the A value. So if we try to make the E value identical to the A value and we try to generate it, the lamp here would give us the error and it would tell us to enter a smaller E. Another feature we have is that if you generate it with the void, you will be disabled from editing the inclusion fields. It will also prevent you from running it if you do not generate it with the void. Like so. We've also error-proofed the edit fields for the E and Poisson's ratio. If this were to be a negative value, it would tell us that E must be larger than 0. It will accept larger values, of course. The same goes for the inclusion values as well. If you were to enter a large number, the Poisson's ratio would be fixed to 0.5, and if you were to enter a really small number, say -2, it would be fixed to 0. You can choose your expansion types, and it would tell you to run to apply the expansion types. We have an application that works very well. It is error-proof. It guides you. If you were to not enter the inclusion values and try to run the application, it would tell you to enter the inclusion values. If you were to reset your mesh and try to run it, it would warn you to make sure you generate. So you would have to generate it, get the ready to run it, And once you've completed it, you would get the post-process output as you please, with multiple color maps and options to display edges. It is also zoomable, and it can be reset, and it is an error-proof program that is easy to use and comes with integrated instructions. Now, for the rest of the process, my friend Alperen will demonstrate the rest of the element types and its dimensions and applications, as his computer is more sufficient than mine. Right now, we are running the process for one of the most intensive meshes. The element type is D2QU9N, which takes the longest time to compute. There are 2,953 nodes and 729 elements. It takes a long time to run. However, it is more than sufficient, as it has a runtime of 1 minute and 48 seconds. You can see that the lamp removes the awkwardness of waiting and prevents you from questioning whether you pressed run or not. The lamp will turn green once it is done running the process. Like so. You can see the distribution for stress XX and stress XY and YX and YY, as well as the strain XX, the strain XY, the strain YX, and the strain YY. The displacement X and the displacement Y are also available. Now for stress XX, once we remove the display edges feature, you can see finer details. You can see that the corners have more color changes where we didn't see the color changes of the identical inclusion shapes and dimensions, but of different element types. So we can say that these meshes are more refined. It is also why it takes a longer time to compute. Now, we run the process for a different element type, which is D2QU4N, which is voided this time and square to show that the application works for more than one feature. As you can see, this takes much shorter to compute, but is accurate. You can see that the distributions are different due to both the difference in the inclusion shape as well as the refinement of the mesh. You can see that the color changes are less smooth, but it is more than sufficient according to what you need. We will now do the same for a rhombus inclusion shape, void shape rather. As you can see, the D2QU4N element type is much faster than the previous one. We've also ensured that the application will never run if the mesh isn't generated first, and if the inclusion values are 0 and such. It is thoroughly error-proofed, and we did do our best to give it errors, to no success. You can see that the mesh is very fine, and the displays are quite nice as well. You can zoom in on the post processes as well and see the fineness of the color changes in corners. You can see that the element doesn't necessarily have to be a square. It works for different geometries and for different dimensions. And needless to say, for different element types. Now, D2Q9N, though more refined, is harder to process. Thank you for watching the project demonstration for the final Finite Element Methods course project. We are Group 1, and it's been a pleasure.